I bought a textbook from the school bookstore yesterday and opened it out of the plastic only to find out that the book wasn't even bound and that you have to get a 3-ring binder to keep it together. What cheap crap do companies do that pee you off? I'd think that this would make it easier to scan and share digitally, which I would have enjoyed back when I was in college. I've always thought it was to decrease the size of the textbook so you don't have to carry the entire thing each day. You only take the section you're working on at that time. I'm a professor who teaches at least one large enrollment class per term. Therefore, I get regular visits from a number of reps from the major textbook companies. The textbook publishers are doing anything they can to curb used book sales because it's hitting their bottom line. They offer custom editions including only select chapters or loose leaf bindings with the promise that they cost less than the full editions, which they do. But they only offer this because they know these books will not end up back in the used book pool. Even worse is the pre-packaged online or digital content. Every publisher is pushing these because you can't sell or buy a used registration code. When professors make the registration code mandatory and then rarely uses the software or don't grade it, my blood boils. Some professors just do not care how much money they're making you spend. Once we had a book that was required and written by our professor. He didn't go through a publisher, and we had to wait for the university's version of Kinko's to print the book. Literally, we would order and pay for the book, wait 30 minutes watching it print from a copy machine, and then they would hand the paper sheets to us in a 3-ring binder. $119 well spent. The professor confirmed you had the book in the first few weeks of class. Also, there were tear-out sheets that we had to complete and turn in, so you either needed a copy or needed to copy another one. But the local copiers were advised it would be copyright infringement. So you had to leave the local area to a company willing to look the other way. He wrote the crappy book and then required it in his class. Whole thing pee a lot of us off. Whoa. And here I had the complete opposite experience with an instructor. He hated any book he could find on the subject, multivariable calc. So, he wrote up all the notes he was going to give over the course of the semester, had the bookstore photocopy and sell them for $5. 3-ring binder not included. That was the most concise, well-formatted book I ever ran across in college. As a law student with 1,000-page heavy case books, these types of books are a godsend. Now I can only take the pages that we are going over to class and not the whole entire book. As an art history student they are also quite good. I can burn the pages separately to keep warm while I never have a job. Not making pockets big enough for girl pants. I want to fit my phone and my wallet in my pockets, thank you. Not have to carry a bag every time I go somewhere. Note, I have a normal size wallet, though my Galaxy is a bit big as far as phones go, I guess. Data throttling with cell providers. I'm paying for unlimited data, not data up to 3 GB then slow but speeds till the next month. I fail to see how the phrase unlimited up to isn't considered false advertising. Unlimited means without limit. Seems simple enough to me. That crap when companies can't even bind the textbook that I paid $150 for really pisses me off. Oh, and you can't resell the book because it has a unique code that you have to register on a website to do workbook problems on the website. So the book is freaking useless after the course is over. Those textbook companies are getting crafty to screw students in even more ways. It's an archaic industry that is no longer needed, trying to squeeze money out of people on its way out of existence. We have plenty of such industries around these days. Lately I've been annoyed with the packaging of Blu-ray discs. An example, the Avengers 3D set had the discs stacked on top of each other instead of each having a dedicated holder. As someone that makes these, this also pisses me off. Going to pick up a book from a rack to put it on the shrink wrapper, only to have 500 pages fly everywhere because it's not an actual book. Crap pisses me off. I work in a college textbook store. That pisses me off to no end. More so for the reason that we can't accept them as a return and no buyback company will take them because you can't possibly prove that all the pages are there. Our professors were so giddy when these hit the market because it reduced the cost of a $220 textbook to $140. We had to explain to them that a majority of the cost is recuperated in resale and this was more expensive for students. Publishers, of course, don't tell professors that last bit. For your information, used to work in a college bookstore. The 3-ring binder texts we had mostly came from an on-campus print shop and were mostly books written by professors. It wasn't them being cheap, it was the professor using his own material. That said, the most expensive of those were like $15. Unfortunately now, you'll often find a $200 textbook that's only available in this format. The exact opposite happens to me, textbook wise. My school sends free new textbooks to all students deployed overseas. I haven't changed my APO address in their system since I returned to the US, and they keep sending me free books to the old address, which just gets forwarded back to the States. Then I sell them on Amazon. I'm not a good person. Those shrink-wrap textbooks that were custom for Kutztown University used to pee me off. They are single-use textbooks, because I couldn't sell them or give them away to someone for next semester, and they made me buy things like manuals for graphing calculators that I don't own and codes to submit homework online. Loose leaf textbooks, frick them. I like that some of them even say they do it as a way to save you money. I'm not saving crap when I pay $40 less for no binding, and can't even resell it because it's select chapters and unbound. I used to work in the produce section of a major grocery store chain. TLDR. Version is always wash your produce after you bring it home from the store. Use disinfecting soap. Standard practices. Our produce manager would take leftover produce from boxes that had expired and then mix it in with the fresh produce. This would repeat until things got bruised enough they had to be thrown out. Before throwing out bruised fruits and vegetables, we first had to cut away the good parts, and those were first in line to be grouped together and sold as fresh, pre-cut, packaged produce and sold at a 35% premium. Crap falls on the dirty, bacteria-ridden floor in the back produce rooms all the time. People would consistently just put stuff back in the boxes without washing. People rarely washed their hands except by convenience when washing the produce that came in off trucks. The water we used to rinse off produce after it arrived on trucks was rarely changed. The same water was always used to wash and rinse sweaty, dirty hands and knives. Banks and their freaking fees. Are you kidding me? You literally have all my money at your fingertips, but you always need just a little bit more, don't you? Textbook companies that make a new edition every 2 years. I bought an engineering mechanics textbook my sophomore year that was published the year before. It cost $140, but when I tried to resell it to the bookstore, they only offered me $7 because they said they were using a new edition the next semester. I was so insulted by that crappy, lowball offer that I decided to just keep it, even though I'd most likely never open it again. I can't tell all of you how much this happens with almost every book. Another example of textbook company bulls was when I bought an old edition of my calculus textbook. I didn't know this when I bought it. In fact, I did 3 homework assignments, book problems, before the professor asked me to stay after class because I had been doing the wrong problems. We were both really confused because I was doing the right types of problems. However, it turned out they usually weren't the ones she actually assigned. Then she asked to see my book and figured out what the problem was. After this, I just borrowed my friend's book when I had to do homework and realized that the new edition was pretty much the same freaking thing as the old one. The chapters and sections were all the same, explanations were often word for word, and the example problems were also the same. The only 2 changes were that the formatting was a little different in each book, and they changed the number of some of the problems. Problem 33 in the old edition was problem 39 in the new one. I also took note that they even made sure to keep all the odd problems odd, because the solutions in the back were only for odd problems and they were too lazy to make new solutions. This type of bulls is incomprehensible to me. But hey, if you ever want a job where you can frick people over while doing a minimal amount of work, the textbook industry is perfect for you. OP, I've had to buy the same thing. The best part being that they won't buy it back because it isn't bound. Best scam ever. I paid $250 for my Spanish book that you need to have a 3-ring binder for as well. Then you needed to pay $80 for the online homework for the book. I was not happy. Restaurants that give me tiny butt cups when I want water. I don't drink soda, and every single time I swear I get this itty bitty little cup that holds about 3 ice cubes and 6 ounces of water. Just because I'm drinking water does not mean that I'm less thirsty. That little sneer when you order water when it wasn't given to you. If you don't sneer at me, I'll give you a better tip anyway. So quit being so judgmental. Got. Who the heck still buys books from the bookstore? I bought every one of my college textbooks online and saved thousands of dollars, especially when the prof would allow a previous edition. I paid $0.25 with free shipping for a book people paid $80 for at the bookstore because it was last year's edition. Wake up, people. Bookstores are nefarious for ripping students off. I had the exact same issue for one of my textbooks. It cost $160 for a few hundred pieces of paper that I could have printed and hole punched. The course I'm teaching is one of those binder texts. It really threw students for a loop the first week. I have my fancy bounded instructor's edition, which unlocks the secrets of the universe. I love the teacher's editions of books. When I forgot my book, well, often I was just being uncooperative. My teacher let me use his one, which had things like the answers to homeworks in it. I bought a book like that once for an economics class. Not only did you have to buy a binder, the dang book was punched at an irregular interval that required you to buy a specific binder made specially for this book. This is the precise reason I've become dedicated to trying to torrent every textbook I have unless it is less than $20. Textbooks are a scamming, shameful industry. What the frick has changed in math in the last 1 year to warrant a new edition? Frick you publishers. I did this last week. Dropped all 537 pages on the ground everywhere in class. Fricking earth and atmospheric science. This is why I stay in arts. No installation media with new computers. Software that comes in flimsy paper sleeves instead of a decent plastic case. No more printed manuals. Just buy an international edition. It's cheaper than this student value edition you bought. How did you not notice the lack of spine and the extra holes punched in it beforehand anyway? And the international editions are almost always bound. Just avoid the ones that have an additional author not included in the original version. The additional author is there because it was localized for the market it's being sold it. So all the example companies, names, places, and questions have been changed and it's slightly harder to follow with your class. Bought a printer at Walmart. Get home to realize that there was no cord to connect it to my computer, that it was sold separately, so the printer was useless. I felt an Office Space moment coming on. That seems like a ripoff at first glance, but there might actually be an advantage to it. How big is this textbook? Is it many hundreds of pages long? Perhaps you could buy 2 binders, one for the complete book and one for the specific chapter or section that you are currently working on. It always bothered me that I had to lug around many hundreds of extra pages for each of, typically, a half dozen books when I was in school. Unlike me, you aren't bound by the limitations of a binding. Consider it an opportunity to make some part of your life easier. This will probably get lost, but I have a list. McDonald's giving me half a slice of cheese on a Filet-O-Fish. And also when they don't completely fill the French fry box. When I buy a pack of cigarettes for $10 and can't get a free pack of matches. Then when I tell the guy to give me a lighter, he gives me the $2 lighter instead of the one for $0.50. Kinda goes without saying. But when I have to pay $4 to access my money at a non-sanctioned ATM. When I have to pay a $4 processing fee to pay my cable bill online. When I get a $5 change of service fee from my cable provider. When I'm adding services to make my monthly bill more expensive. And when stores try to sell me ripped clothing because it's fashionable. I'm not paying $50 for incomplete jeans. A textbook I bought this semester was $120. It is only viewable through a secure website that requires an internet connection. You cannot print it out. You cannot download a PDF of it. Best part, it expires in December. Just figured I'd comment on the unbound book issue. I work at a college and part of my role as an instructor is to select books each term from the publisher. The unbound option is usually done for you, the student, because it knocks a significant chunk off the bookstore price. Also, most publishers allow instructors professors to make Frankenstein books where chapters sections can be omitted or even added from completely different texts the publisher sells. Often the Frankenstein books come in the unbound format. Personally, I don't order unbound texts because what the student saves an upfront cost they usually lose in resale. It's hard to keep those books in as good as condition as a hard or soft cover text. I work at a college textbook store. Just so you know, those books come like that because of the ridiculous rise in textbook prices. Oftentimes colleges will make a deal with the publisher to send a paperback version or loose leaf made specific to that college to lower the overall cost for students. It is still expensive, but the loose leaf versions are oftentimes $100 cheaper than the hardback original. It is done to frick over the students by removing the ability to resell, not save them money. Companies are increasingly publishing textbooks in both bound and unbound formats because it's convenient for the purchaser. No, I'm not joking. Before unbound editions were available, some of us would take our books to a copy shop, have binder holes drilled, and the binding cut off. We used to pay $20 extra for this. Now you can get them without the binding for, usually, $10 less. I know it's unbelievable, but a publishing company actually altered format as a response to consumer demand. Really, stick with me here. I don't know what you're studying, but if you pursue an academic discipline which entails a lot of thick, heavy textbooks, unbound books are a godsend. Instead of carrying around 4-6 texts with upwards of 3,000 pages, you carry around what you need at any given time, and leave the rest at home and not carry the extra weight. This can easily add up to 10 pounds of irrelevant crap you get to leave at home every day, not to mention the freed up volume in your bag. Cycle them weekly, and save your back. Also, you can drop it in a feeder scanner and keep the PDF with you at all times, so frick paper, TLDR. It's a feature, not a bug. Was it an econ book by chance? My econ book did this and I was pretty freaking pee. The pages are all flimsy too and rip out easily. All of my textbooks for lab classes were like that because of all of the lab work I'd be taking out of the book. Price tag pee me off, but for that type of textbook it wouldn't make any sense for it to be bound. When in a college bookstore I saw the same thing happen. The student was trying to return the book because she thought there was an error, but that was how it was ordered. Some publishers offer this option. Your prof program head would have chosen this option for the cost advantage for you and your classmates. If you don't like how the books came, talk to your department. If they know students would rather spend more money for a bound book, and they'll reconsider them in the future. Ever wonder why math textbooks are so much more expensive than most regular textbooks? That is, books that are mostly plain text. When the printing press and typesetting were first invented, mathematics books were much more expensive to publish because the equations had to be hand carved into the printing plates, as opposed to just basic typesetting. Nowadays, with computers, it's much easier to print equations, but they still charge like they're hand carving each page onto a printing plate. Edit. I just remembered. I have a professor this term who does not have a required textbook for her class, and all the required readings are online. However, she does not allow electronics in class, and expects everyone to print off all the readings to bring to class, which comes out to about 40 pages a week. Printing in the library is 10 cents per page, and printing all that at home would lead to some fairly ridiculous ink costs. So I'd rather have bought a textbook for $30 that I can then sell back at the end of the semester. What she really ought to do is have all these assigned readings published as an anthology reader, which she can then have sold in the bookstore for her students every semester, and she makes money off it. I've had several professors do this. It's not particularly expensive for the students, and it works pretty well. Man, OP, I had that problem too. It was a Spanish textbook. Thing was already $150. I couldn't believe I had to go buy a binder on top of it all. Nowadays there is this place where students bring a book from the library, then they copy and bind it for you in a copy shop. Costs approx $12 for 200 pages book. If they are gonna do cheap, students can do it cheaper. I went out of my way to get the loose leaf copy of my accounting book. It allowed me to bring only one chapter to class at a time, instead of the whole clunky book. Do you really want to always have the whole thing around? Their books are la carte, in that you can take only the pages you need to class. I'm willing to bet any amount of money that your book was actually labeled appropriately. Pics to prove me wrong? OP, your thing is my thing. I just paid $120 for the new edition of your book. The least you could do is bind the fricking thing. Especially when the only thing you changed was spelling and graph colors. This actually sounds useful in that you can insert your own notes. Cheap, but useful. Also, it's now a lot easier to feed it through a photocopier and sell unauthorized copies. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.